Onto the cloud. Okay. Hi, my name is Tanya Kaepernick. Welcome to the Empath Alchemy Retreat. We are here to get you moving in your life, right? Like bringing you information. And today, our incredible speaker who has lots of wisdom to share with us is Sarah Jane Farrell. She's an intuitive, trauma-informed, and trained life and business mentor to highly sensitive empaths, heart-centered rebels, misfits on a purpose-driven mission to change the world. That means working with a flexible nervous system so that you and your pets can heal, trust your intuition and your body again after trauma, grief, or emotional abuse. Her unique, functional, integrative healing approach has changed the lives and businesses of thousands of people and their pets in over 50 countries. Sarah Jane has a PhD in grief and trauma resolution that she got out in the field of life experiences growing up in a war-torn Zimbabwe. As an adult child of an alcoholic parent, she suffered from a multitude of chronic health issues, anxiety, depression, shame-based survival patterns. She spent the last 20 plus years and over 40,000 hours in clinical practice, sharing what she knows because every person has their own unique history. She creates individual prescriptions for health, abundance, and well-being by combining the ancient wisdom of shamanic, there we go, I got it, practices with the latest cutting edge neuroscience and attachment theory. Her unique, no BS healing approach has changed the lives and businesses of people and their pets in over 50 countries. Oh, you are coming to the table with an incredible amount of wisdom to share with us. Let's start off with what's the difference between an empath and a highly sensitive person.
Yeah, well, thank you. My ego really likes that when you read my bio, and my higher divine evolved self goes, you don't need any of that. You're enough just as you are, which is something I think that all empaths and highly sensitive people need to know. And I think something that the animals have taught me. So first of all, thank you. I acknowledge you for putting this beautiful summit together. I think it's so necessary at this time when we're all so overwhelmed and with this compassion fatigue and all the things that we're trying to hold. And just coming back to the animals, they say it to me all the time that you are enough, right? And I think that one of the things that I've found working with interspecies communication and trauma-informed sort of somatic body work with the energy medicine, that we kind of are finding each other. We said that before we got on the show. It's just like, where have you been all my life? We're finding our soul family. We're coming back together. And it is the misfits and the rebels and the ones that kind of feel like they were not part of their blood family. And a lot of my clients and my students resonate with what I share about the blessings and the challenges of living as an empath and a highly sensitive person. And I'm not emphasizing, that an empath or a highly sensitive person is not necessary in the world, but we came in here with a specific job to do, and that was to really hold the light, for everybody else to kind of grow and evolve into. So I think the difference between empaths and highly sensitive people is I was diagnosed as borderline, and I always say you're not your diagnosis, but I was brought up as a very sensitive child that was very intuitive and would say things that people got very uncomfortable hearing, because that's what we empaths do. We forget where we begin and the other person ends. And sensitivity comes more from that place of growing up in a dysfunctional family. You have to be sensitive. You have to be hypervigilant. You have to be looking at, 10 steps ahead and having all the exit strategies in place because it's not safe for you to be yourself. So, identifying as an empath or a highly sensitive person is not necessarily in that order to become skilled and proficient at reading other people's energies or speaking to animals. But we are drawn to animals and plants and trees and rocks and quiet places because we get overwhelmed with just too much input, right? Too many other people's thoughts, feelings, and emotions, and we don't know what's ours anymore. And then we kind of go into the fixing mode. So I think it's important to know that I think that we are born, there's a certain percentage of people, I think it's with high sensitivity, it's about, I think it's 15 to 20%, if you know the work of Dr. Elaine Aron, that she writes about highly sensitive people. But they've studied those people, and they've studied high sensitivity from insects to horses to dogs to fish to people. And it helps us to sort of understand a lot about the innate natural variations, right? The mutations in our physiology, in our biology, and our nervous systems a little bit better. And I think that the empathic part is part of that. So yes, there are more people that are highly sensitive empaths, but the empathy comes from not being seen or received yourself, right? You want what you never received from other people. It's like the welcome that you never got for the parts and pieces of yourself that were denied, if that makes sense. So, not all people are intuitive psychics or telepathic, are energetically sensitive in the same way that empaths are. And it also has nothing to do with everybody's ability that might be listening to this to receive clearly and do intuitive work. But I think that it gives us an edge because we're tuned in and we're looking at microfacial expressions. We're reading the energy frequencies of people. But it can also be really, really exhausting, as you probably know, Tanya, when you're living in that place all the time.
It can be so exhausting. And then when you don't have to live in that anymore, you're so trained to still look for it. Yeah. So minute behaviors from people, you're like, oh my gosh, how do I read this?
Yeah.
Right? Like, what does this mean? And it's nothing, right? No. It's just a behavior from somebody, but you read so deeply into it. Yeah.
Well, it's a survival pattern. It's just like some people would call that a coping strategy. I don't really like that because it feels like a wrongness. Mm-hmm. And we're kind of wired, aren't we, to look at what's wrong rather than what's right about us. So if you're an emotional empath, your body has been playing along, no dress rehearsal, this game of pretense, to make sure that you fit, to make sure that you belong, to make sure you're not abandoned since you were born. Yeah. And the beautiful thing about the Aquarian age and where we are right now in our sort of ascension or our conscious evolution as a species, as humanity, is I think that empaths are getting recognized for the light holders, because that's really what we've been doing. We've been holding and transmuting so much light to hold space for other people to rise their vibrational frequency. And I think one of the things that we hold as the wounding, right, that sort of wounded healer archetype that so many empaths have, is that I can't charge what I'm worth, or because I don't value myself, or because people think I'm going to be weird. So we've muted and censored and abandoned and rejected parts and pieces of ourselves. Is we're at that stage now where we have to let go of the stories. We have to let go of the labels, because you've already learned how to hold an upgraded template from the minute you were born. You've adjusted and shapeshift and kind of tried to fit in and still felt like you're in exile. Yeah. And the time's come right now for us to sort of drop that old ego story of abandonment and connect into this new template, which is the exciting part, because you already are a miracle. Wow. You just didn't see it before. And especially with women, don't you relate to, for me, a big thing's been trust, trusting women more than men. And that's a big sort of trauma wound that we've carried from one generation to another, because we are the ancestors of the witches that weren't burnt. And there's a distrust in that, because we were given up and betrayed as far as our ancestors were by women. Yeah. And it's that forgetfulness that we already know, that this is our last lifetime, that we have to stay in this unnecessary suffering, that we are past the persecution programs of our great grandmothers. Yeah. So I love that. I love that we're there. And I think that's the change that, speaking about empaths and creating the safe space for people to practice healthy co-regulation as women, is it's about co-creation and the joy of that over competition. because that's not us. That's what we had to adapt to in order to survive in a hostile world.
Wow, I love that paradigm shift of you already are that, right? Because so often we get into the we've got to fix ourselves, right? But when you sit into the you're already that, it's like, oh, that makes things way easier than trying to become something.
If you acknowledge it,
Ooh,
so it's about also dropping the old story and actually claiming it. I always say, if you're not full of yourself, who are you going to fill yourself up with?
Ew, yeah.
Because how many of us were told, oh, don't be so full of yourself. Oh, you're so selfish. Oh, who do you think you are? They cut the tall poppies down. No, not anymore, because we're holding that energetic boundary of the light to actually say, okay, this is the way we're going to do it now. I'm going to start taking care of myself with this empathetic sensitivity. And I teach a lot around that topic, that importance of energy management and boundaries, because we don't know where we start and the other person ends, because we've been leaking our energy out trying to fix and change and help everybody else that is choosing a different reality.
That is completely,
it's like, okay, stay in your own lane. And the power of choice is yours. And the greatest gift that you can give anybody is to be your own sovereign being, to be your own authority and lead by example, and also be an allowance of come if you want to come, stay if you want to stay. I have no point of view about that. It's just like one of my 10 commandments. Interesting point of view. I have that point of view.
I like that.
It's just a point of view.
Yeah. Oh, and a personal 10 commandments. That's incredibly powerful.
Yeah.
Right? Oh, I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, this is a perfect segue into attachment theory, which is something I totally love to geek out on, and I think is people could use more information on. So would you mind speaking to attachment theory and the importance here of it?
I love to, because this is the world that I live in. And it's just like, once you can start to stop, I love playing with words too. It's just like when you think about understanding, our words, we're alchemists, we are magic makers, and we have this heightened sensitivity that makes us afraid of using our own magic. So just the power of words, it's just like, what does it mean to understand something in the context of this reality, not the one that we live in as empaths? And I'm not making us superior, I'm just saying there is a difference. That in order for me to understand where somebody else is coming from means that I have to stand under, I literally have to shapeshift and become the energy of what they're being and stand under their pile of whatever they have created, erroneous debris or whatever it is, to get where they're coming from. And that is not very useful, is it?
No, it's not.
And this is the way that we have been taught to survive. And it's all nonverbal, right? When we're born, we have no language, right? It's all nonverbal. We're reading the vagus tone through the facial expression of our parents, our primary caregivers. And if we don't have safety, connection, and belonging, right? If we're left to cry ourselves to sleep, if there's no secure attachment, we're already forming that on a cellular level, that it's not safe to be in the world. So attachment styles, just like anything else, it's not a label, it's not a diagnosis, it doesn't define you, but it's a very useful tool, just like the 5 elements of Chinese medicine, which I also like to use, or numerology, or Enneagram, or human design. They're all going to give you a better understanding, because you're standing in yourself, right? You're owning your survival patterns of adaptation. And you're going, oh my gosh, how brilliant am I? What a genius way I have created to keep myself safe when I couldn't defend myself. So really, attachment styles are created as a survival pattern, generally pre-5-year-old. I say 3. We've already formed that. We've already developed the character or the traits. that we adopt, and you could look at that as archetypal. You know, am I going to play the people pleaser, the daddy's girl, the rebel, whatever archetypical makeup you choose to put on, right? We're literally shape shifting into that moment to moment. So most of us have a primary, right? One stronger one than the other. So you're either anxious, or you're anxious avoidant, or you're anxious dismissive, or you're totally disorganized. And that's kind of my style that I created, because I had a disorganized attachment. I couldn't organize my head if my external environment was chaos, and that's what it was. So it looks like ADHD. It looks like bipolar. It looks like all sorts of labels, whatever you want to call it in that moment, but it isn't who you are. It doesn't define you. And the shift that I want people to get is, regardless of how you attached, right? If you had to create distance and become ambivalent, in other words, the child that says, I don't care, I'll do it all myself, I don't need anybody. There's a separation that happens in every style anyway, because there isn't safety to connect. But they all kind of overlap each other. But the anxious type is the one that's going to be very needy and very codependent and will give themselves up. So it really just, it gives you a beautiful foundation to actually start to acknowledge and identify how you created all these coping skills, whether you're empathic or not. And this is where I say empaths in my world, the insight that I have got, especially working with animals like sensitive horses, is that we don't know how to be in our bodies because it's not safe. It's not safe to be in the body. And they're flight animals. So I love working with horses and people that have had trauma or have that huge hyper aroused nervous system, because they will pick a horse that has had very similar trauma patterns to them, and they mirror that and they work it out together through the body. You know, we've got to shake that out, come back into the body, and then start to loosen, unfreeze those thawed parts of us that we've decided are very dangerous to be in our true nature, very dangerous to be myself. And that's the coming home, right? That's the coming home to ourselves, so that we can stand up as sensitives, even though we may be labeled as strange, weird, crazy, whatever. Doesn't matter anymore. Make sense?
It does. Those are all the fun labels, though.
Yeah. And I know growing up, all I wanted to do was fit in. I wanted to be normal. You know, we all wanted to be normal. We didn't want to be weird. We didn't want to be ostracized or vilified or persecuted, because there's that persecution pattern running again. Yeah. So, you know, I think a lot of people that are very empathic didn't have an easy childhood. Yeah. Because you're always on the outside. You were never included in that. And we were made wrong for it. Yeah. So I know I personally disowned those parts of me. Mm-hmm. I stopped listening to the voices, listening to the trees and the animals for a very long time, because it was safer to do that than stay connected. And that's the soul loss, isn't it? Yeah. That's where we lose ourselves and we don't know who we are anymore. And then we kind of wake up and we go, you know, I've had an unlived life. An unlived life is just the inner child and the child parts that are screaming for attention that we can finally hear.
Yeah. It's the abandonment of everything you are for the love. And it's true. Then you live this life that's other people's, and you get into marriages that are for other people, or you bend to society for other people, and you find yourself angry and depressed and not understanding why. And it's all self-abandonment.
It is. And that's all maladaptive, right? It's all the stress overload, that it's that toxic, chronic, unpredictable stress where we wake up and we go, I don't even know who I am anymore, because we've fragmented into so many roles and disciplines just to stay safe,
Yeah.
Which is why, even the syndromes, the PMS, the Raynaud's, the fibromyalgia, the migraines, whatever it is. Those are just maladaptive stress responses to keep you safe. It's like, what do you get out of creating a migraine? If you can own that you're the creator of that's how powerful you are. If you can create all the things you don't want because you don't feel safe, imagine what we can do when we actually start owning the fact that we have empathic sensitivities.
Yeah.
These are the people that are going to lead a sustainable world that we're creating right now.
Yeah.
It's just we're in that holding space, aren't we, right now, where we've got to kind of hold fast in the truth of who we are.
Yeah.
Because we've been asking for this, and we've been created and designed to be here right now.
Yeah. And
we just need to hold fast right now so that we can start building up from the ashes, right? Literally the phoenix rising out of the ashes. And stop trying to fix, right? The healing is moving from fixing to flow. It's the tension and the collapse, or both that sort of survival physiology response at the nervous system level. It's all saying to us, okay, extreme caretaking is required right now because there is intense stress. That's the only way through, right? It's holding the grief and the gratitude together as both sides of love. We have to grieve and metabolize and move all the parts of us that were not welcomed. That's the secondary losses. All the parts you lost yourself need to be grieved. And like you said, they need to get angry.
They do.
But those are all the things that we have not been taught in this culture, in this timeline. So we have to start to learn how to apprentice and find our tribe and stop being the lone wolf, because you can't see it when you're in it.
It's so tricky. And when you're in it, to spiral downwards because you don't have a tribe that's supporting you, right? And especially because we've abandoned ourselves so often for love. It's like, well, how do I trust a tribe? How do I come across these people that I can finally trust? Because you will look for them. You'll self-sabotage that in the tribe and look for reasons to run away from it. Right.
Yeah. Well, yes. And the rightness of that is exactly right. It's how can I, would you rather be right? You see, I'll abandon myself first before anybody else hurts me. I can hurt me, but nobody else can hurt me. And that's a beautiful, simple question that doesn't require an answer. And that is, would you rather be right or free?
Or free. Yeah.
Right. Then you don't have to defend your point of view anymore. That's exhausting too. It's the constant over explaining that comes because we don't feel safe. That's why we over explain. That's why we're constantly in this sort of defensive position, or this learned helplessness, or the submissive position, because it's exhausting. And that's why eventually the body says no. The body says, no more. We're not doing this. Yeah. So it's an interesting, the body's amazing. Our body data is so brilliant. And it's time we start listening to it. And I think that's the biggest gift that empathic people that, with heightened sensitivities, those, the sort of autistic spectrum, we're actually all autistic. If you're highly sensitive, you're autistic. And that's not a wrongness. It's a beautiful gift that just hasn't been very well received, because people don't understand it. Why? Because we live in a culture that rewards problem solving, that rewards pushing and, going against the grain and pulling your bootstraps up and going against the body, actually, where the sensitivity of an empath is saying, this doesn't feel good. I'm going to move myself away from this because it's not kind to my body. It's time that we start doing that. And that's the beautiful gift of empathy, right? Of being empathic.
It is. And, I wanted to throw this in here for anybody who is an over explainer. It like catapults you into depression when you start doing it. When you start catching yourself over explaining, you are on a massive track down into depression. Yes. Yeah.
Not everybody is going to get you, and that's okay.
Yeah.
And I think that's another one of my commandments is nothing is, it's not personal. Go where you need to go, regardless of of other people's validation or who's going to come with you. It's a lonely life, isn't it? You know, this is where we've been as sort of the gatekeepers or the keepers of the light. I always say you're not a light worker, you're a light giver. You know, we're tired of being alone. It doesn't, that's ending now. That's the beautiful thing that's happening right now. We're no longer alone. We never have been, but we're finding each other through, you know, these beautiful spaces that you're holding and healthy co-regulation. We're starting to learn how to restore more flow into our systems because we've got the space, right? We've got eyes on us. This is what the animals do. That's why zebras don't get ulcers. You know, they get away from the lion, shake themselves off, and they go running back to their little tribe and they start eating again because they have eyes on us. We haven't had eyes on us for such a long time. It's what I call the great separation sickness. We're changing that. We're changing that now. And that's a beautiful thing. You know, I want people to feel hopeful, and not from wishful thinking, but from faith-based hope, that your tender heart, the way that things matter and move you is all you have to do. There's nothing to prove and there's nothing to hide. It's just like, keep showing up and do what you're doing, but know that you have eyes on you. You're not alone anymore.
Wow. Okay. So what does a healthy co-regulation look like?
Safety. Safety. Without safety, you have nothing. So I can't trust you to feel. Okay, so let's play. Let's play, Tanya.
Okay.
If we didn't have words, there's a felt sense when you have heightened sensitivity, where beyond the words, I feel you feeling me. It's very body based, right? It's the God bumps. It's a heart opening. For me, a lot of the time, healthy co-regulation is when I meet somebody and I start leaking. You know, it's like tears start forming in my eyes, at the back of my eyes, because I feel safe.
Wow.
And it's such a relief. I remember many times apologizing for that I would just be overcome with emotion, because the person was feeling me. I was being welcomed. It's a welcoming. For me, it's body based. You know, it's like you have to feel in order to heal everything. So it's healthy co-regulation is, I don't need to say anything.
Okay.
I can just be here now and know that you're feeling me, right? Our little spidey senses, our little nerves and our dendrites on a cellular level. There's a recognition of home.
Okay. Yeah. Like just absorbing that.
It's a beautiful place. It's a beautiful place. But for most people, they don't even ever get to experience that because people are dangerous. It's what am I going to, what do I have to do in order to get what I want? It's what's in it for me. What am I going to lose? We're always taught that people can't be trusted. And that's been passed on to us before we're even hurt through relationship.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think this is why we feel so good with animals.
Of course, because they're predictable, because that's the other thing, right? As mammals, we need the safety and the connection and belonging, but we also need predictability. And we've been taught that we think we have control, which is also quite funny. Because the only thing we have control over is what we choose moment to moment. That's pretty much it. And even then, there is divine intervention and synchronicity that's working behind the scenes, that we have a team, right? We have an energetic support team. Yeah. So we're not alone. But part of it is, I think, and again, the animals show me this all the time, is that we've already mastered unconditional love. We came in as these beautiful divine beings that are part of everything, that know we belong. And then we come into human form, and we're not used to this dense carbon-based reality. It's heavy down here, right? So we kind of are not comfortable in our skins. We have to learn how to navigate in these bodysuits until we decide to go and find another one, if that's what we're choosing, right? But the one thing we haven't mastered, and where animals are such beautiful teachers for me, and they've saved me from my egoic self time and time again, is self-love. That's what they've come to teach us, how to love ourselves. You know, it's like it's not about be the animal, be the person your dog knows you already are. It's not about that, because we are the being, but it's the being in the body that has forgotten, right? It's the forgetfulness of how to be safe in the body so that we can be ourselves, to be that being, that just pure love. I think that's what they've come to teach us, and the greatest lesson of all.
It is the greatest lesson. And it's so interesting how they find us too, right? Don't the right animals always find you?
Always.
Yeah.
And that could be, you know, that could be fleeting too. It could come in dream state. It's not necessarily always physical animals that find us, but they have soul contracts just as we do. They come in for their own experience, but they also come in in a soul contract with you. And a lot of times it's lifetimes old. And then you have the other animals, or, you know, what we call animal totems, or the animals that are migratory, that will come in with a message for you at exactly the moment that you are asking for something. So you have your soul contract, so your master guides that can come in bodies and without bodies, but then you also get the transitory ones. You know, it's like the ant or the bird that hits the window, and or for me it was, I'll never forget once I was like really in my head, and I was rushing about, and I could feel I was like heading for burnout. And we had like this really low slung bridge, one-way bridge, with a river running over it. And this humongous crab like kind of just jumped out of nowhere. He started, you know, doing a sidewalk across the bridge. And that was all that I needed to slow down. You know, so whether you want to call that angels or the medicine of crabs teaching you patience and to, you know, to do the sidestep or whatever it was, animals will always show up in your life at exactly the moment that you're asking for support, or that you don't even know that you need support. And who knows, you know, I could have got in a crash, I could have got a speeding ticket, who knows? But animals, I suppose nature, you know, the non-human species, they're giving us information and feedback all the time, just like this animal body of ours is giving us information and feedback all the time. And we just need to listen. You know, we got to come back to our hearts and get out of this sort of arrested state of development, so that we can start to heal.
Yeah. Oh, that's something we forget often, that our bodies are animals.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
We're animals, you know. We need to give ourselves a prefrontal lobotomy, and then we'll be happy again. Because, you know, we live in our heads. We've forgotten that this magnificent body, it's kind of like your head is the rider, and your body is a horse, and you're treating it like a machine instead of the sensitive, incredible, super quantum self-healing organism that wants you to thrive, that wants you to be what you came here to be. And we don't treat them very well, do we?
Not well. And if you think about it, how often are you talking about something or someone, and your face you'll be like, oh no, that doesn't feel good, but you'll go and do it anyway, even though your body's like, ugh, right?
Yeah.
How often we don't listen to ourselves. Yeah.
Yeah. And then we wonder why we're in suffering, right? It's like, is this unnecessary suffering? Follow your body's natural impulse. But again, it's not your fault that we don't know this stuff. You know, we're remembering that we've been programmed for generations has been passed down, the cultural mores and moralities that you can't burp or fart or yawn in public. So, what do? Look at the kids in school. We know we need to hydrate. We know we need to drink a lot of water if we're going to get the brain in optimal flow. We know we need to move the body in order to process information. So, and what are we taught to do? You got to sit still, which is really hard then you're a troubled child because you can't sit still because you got ADD, which is actually saying, I'm not safe here. And I actually want to move my body and run around, and I'd learn a lot better outside if you taught me this there.
Yeah.
But you're taught, okay, well, I can't drink water because then I need to go to the toilet. Then I'll be punished because I'm not allowed to go to the toilet until it's break.
Yes.
So, we've actually created a very unnecessary monster of dysfunction as far as the nervous system and the whole brain goes. We're degenerating children's brains because they're not hydrated enough.
Yeah. And then you add sugar-based drinks to that and caffeinated stuff that's going to suck even more moisture out. Not only are they not drinking enough water, but there's a lot of stuff that sucks moisture out of your.
Absolutely. And we wonder why we all have chronic fatigue, or why our children aren't moving the way that they used to move. It's just like I would say 99% of people are either hyper aroused or shut down, and I would rather be one of the hyper aroused ones that can't sit still and is bouncing all over the place but both of them are extreme states. Right. And that's that survival point of view. That's that reptilian part of the brain that's being activated and dissociating that frozen and numb feeling. And then we grow up 10, 20, 30 years later, and it's like my clients are saying to me, oh my God, I just feel dead inside. I'm utterly exhausted. And you wonder why. Yeah. You've been running with your foot on the brake and the accelerator for so long. And you've got to kind of get yourself back into a way that you're not on or off all the time. And that's where your attachment styles come in, that we were talking about earlier. Yeah. The people pleaser, the helper, or the people that can't relax, so they can't sit still, or they're overachievers and they're paralyzed by details, or they're losing sight of everything. And, it's the never enough. I'm never enough. It's always sort of very, shame-based, all of it, isn't it?
It is. Oh, it is. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a big topic, and it's just so important. And I think the biggest part is that we've been missing, especially for the very highly empathic people. Because I know I've got family members that couldn't give a shit, to be honest, for swearing, but it's like, they don't get this work. They don't get me, and that's fine. They're not sensitive to the fact that we are crying and grieving for the climate collapse, or they just don't get it, and that's okay. But I think if anyone wants to take anything away from this conversation, it's that you're not going to die. Right, because that's why we've stayed with our families. That's why we put up with what you put up with, and this goes for everybody, whether they're sensitive or not. It's all got to do with that getting more flexibility on their nervous system, because the moral shame, right, is that survival stress of that I'm feeling guilty to be breathing, basically. There's guilt about being alive. And I speak to women every single day that go, oh yeah, you know what? I wanted to check out years ago. I planned my suicide. I didn't want to be here. You were talking about depression. Depression for me is soul loss. It's like, I don't know who I am anymore. And I suffered from chronic depression my entire teenage life. In fact, it still gets me on days, right? Because there's that empathic stuff where it's too much, it's too overwhelming. And I think introversion is another one of those signs of sort of toxic shame, which is held in the body, right? Where we're shy because we want to stay invisible. That's another one that a lot of empaths play, right? Is we don't want to be in any trouble, and all that shame is held in your body for so long, and it's literally a plea to live. It's a subconscious, on a subconscious level, we're saying, I just want to live, you know.
Yeah.
It's very sad, and those parts need to be grieved, you know. That we need to, and we need tribe to do that. You know, grief is a solitary sport. I think Ida Prodoff says that needs a tribe to move it, to heal it. You can't grieve on your own. It needs to be witnessed, and you know, we need to be reminding each other that we came in as love. It has nothing to do with worth or value or proving that we're lovable. It's remembering that we are love. That's what we have to do. And welcoming those parts home, because that's your anxious ambivalent attachment style. You know, it's just like you were never welcomed. You were never felt seen. You were never validated. So we got to welcome those parts home. And in our grief rituals, that's what we do. We're in the dark descent of the depression that you were talking about. We're coming out of the dark. We're not rushing it, because there's gifts there.
There is.
I'm saying, oh, I see you. I feel you. I feel you. Welcome. Welcome grief. Welcome anger.
Yeah.
All the parts and pieces of me are welcome. Come and sit at the table.
Yeah.
Tell me your story. But remember, you're not your story. You're the one that tells an incredible story.
Yeah. Digest that one, right?
Yeah, we're amazing storytellers,
Yeah,
but we don't own it.
We are amazing storytellers.
This is how our ancestors, the medicine woman that came before you, because we are all healers, we are all our own medicine. This is how the ancient traditions were passed on to us, and you just may have forgotten some of them. But you have strong medicine. Everyone that's listening, we all come in with our unique gifts and capacities. Nobody else has what you have.
Yeah.
And nobody can take that away.
Yeah. That's an important thing to tell yourself. Nobody has what I have.
Nobody has what I have.
Yeah.
And what is the value of self-shredding? Right? What is the value of devaluing yourself? Because we like punishment. Right?
We do.
Why? Because it's safe. It's something we know. It's familiar. It's predictable.
Because you know what, I think there was a confusion of it with love. You know, I think we confused it as love at some point. So it's like, well, to love myself, I'm going to punish myself, but it's like, oh, that's twisted.
Absolutely. And it's the reality of it, but it's not the truth, right? What's true for you and what's the truth isn't the same thing.
No.
But you hit it on the nail, right? You just defined everything that happens to create adverse childhood experiences. I hit you because I love you. I verbally abuse you because I care about you. I only do it because I care. So of course we're going to go and choose toxic relationships because it's familiar, it's safe, even though it's not safe. That's the paradox, right? That's the unlearning. That's where the rewiring of the brain has to happen, right? For the nervous system to go, actually, that you're feeling is safe. And you know what? Some of us are slow learners. I always say, I had to put my hand on the hot plate a few times before I realized that was not what I was choosing. And that's okay. Yeah. You know, but don't go into that shame spiral where you're starting to get carried away with the identity of the fact that you're never going to get it right. Yeah. It's just like a sense of humor is really important. You know, it is. Like, I am willing to be the joke of my own reality.
Yeah. Yeah. Right.
It's not always easy, but it's simple.
Yeah.
So it's like, oh my gosh, I'm so brilliant. I just did that again.
Right. Yeah. Look how fabulous I am at doing this. Consistency.
Oh, aren't I just brilliant?
Oh gosh, yes.
It's a beautiful thing.
It is. It is.
It's a beautiful, beautiful thing, but we're in it together. And I think that's the most important part is don't give up your empathy. Don't give up your sensitivities to prove somebody else's point of view right. Because that's what we've been doing.
Yeah.
Cutting, mutilating, amputating, shredding, stripping, persecuting, abandoning parts and pieces of ourselves. It's this intergenerational trauma line stops here right now because we're choosing it. Yeah.
I want to ask you if you have anything else to add, but I don't know if people could handle it.
Oh my goodness. I'm sorry. It's just like,
no,
it's just, I'm so, this matters to me. You know, this is my purpose-driven life. It's heart-led and it's uncensored because I'm willing to be wrong. Yeah. And yes, it still hurts because I'm human. And yes, I will doubt and I will think, well, maybe they're right. And we will always go there. But with every new level that we expand our capacity to open our hearts even more and love even more. Thank you, animals, because they live shorter lives than us. Yeah. And every time we go through the grieving process and we lose them in their physical, our relationship with them in spirit grows stronger because there is no death.
No.
So would you be willing to live? I'll leave you with this question. Would you be willing to stop protecting a life you're not living and rise up? Rise up and just be yourself.
Wow. Yeah, that is perfect to leave people with. Now, do you want to tell the audience about the incredible free gift and offer you have for them?
I would love to just say thank you for the gift that you are and that who you be in the world as a gift.
Yeah, that's perfect.
Everybody else on the show. And yeah, if you want to understand more about yourself, take the attachment style quiz. Yep. And when you do, you'll also see a link to a short masterclass series that's going to give you even more understanding about your biology, your makeup, and how brilliant you were at keeping yourself safe. Because once you have that information and the understanding of where you came from, then you can start doing the deep work. You got to acknowledge it first and see yourself as a gift. So that's my free gift. And if anyone would like to experience a deep dive into your neurophysiology and the alchemy of the intuitive medical scanning and the way that I work with my modalities to get to the root cause of what's keeping you stuck, I would love to help them. And I think we have a really special offer on that, on like 50% off on a 60-minute session with me, which the rate that we go can sometimes be infinitely longer than that. So if someone would like to explore that avenue, it would be an honor for me to be their guide. So thank you, Tanya.
Oh gosh, thank you, Sarah.
Yeah, thank you everyone for being here.
Incredible offer. Yes, thank you, Sarah, for all of your wisdom. It's like, listen to this a few times to soak that in, right? And thank you to everybody who's watching. I hope you are getting as much of this out of this as we are, because it's incredible information. And if you put it to use, it'll help you move. And remember to tune in tomorrow where you can expand even more, grow your journey even more, understand yourself on a deeper level. And until then, think deep, dream big, and spread light.